Hey guys, welcome back to War Thunder and welcome to a positive, uplifting video. That's right, we're not ranting today, we're not roasting Gaijin, don't worry about it, we'll be back again next week, but today I actually wanted to sit back, relax, and show you some gameplay, some proper gameplay. And this video, oh yes, it's brought to you by NOX Kalina. If your phone works as crappily as mine does, because it dies on 40% battery, it's filled with bloatware, and hopefully a replacement will be delivered to me sometime within recording this very commentary. So I'm waiting for the bell to go off and receive my new Samsung Galaxy A50. The app is free to download from the Google Play Store. Link will be in the description below. And it's just going to check your phone for malware. It's going to delete all the files you don't require. It's going to also give you options to delete files that you perhaps didn't even know were bloating on your phone. It's going to make it work faster, look cleaner, and more importantly, optimize it so your battery doesn't just drain to zero. All of that in the description. Now, let's get seal clubbing. So as with all the gameplay analysis that I tend to do, it's important to understand what vehicle we're spawning in, what map we're spawning in on, which capture point we're going to choose to go for, and something that I don't talk about is where in the spawn point you tend to locate yourself and how you leave your spawn. I don't know if you saw that right there. It wasn't a big oopsie, but Hatsune Miku in the Tiger P had spawned on the far left side of the spawn point. Now I completely understand what he was trying to do. He's trying to get across onto Alpha, right? Maybe an overlooking spot, maybe going for the capture point itself. But in a game like this, Alpha is not the priority. Priority is to secure Charlie, and the enemy team's going to be securing Bravo. That's due to the way the map's oriented. And it is vital that I get my heavy tank as close to or into Charlie, into cover, before the enemy gets there. Now, in the case here, both me and the Tiger were paying attention. We nearly just grazed each other. There was no ramming involved. We didn't really lose much time. But there are so many situations, and I know you guys can familiarize with this, where you just want to get out of your spawn, and there's a person who's, just going across. This is the equivalent of driving on the highway and a person just going across multiple lanes without even putting his indicator on. And then, people will ram into you. And I've had issues where people will just ram you without realizing that they're ramming you because they've just mushed the E button and they've gone to make themselves a cup of tea in their Churchill. So there has to be timing involved here, because what you're about to see is this. We just captured Charlie. Not a big deal, right? Well, it is, because what I'm about to find behind this building is, ironically enough, a Tiger 2P. We'll touch on to why I'm actually facing German tanks in a German tank, but this Tiger 2P, if I hadn't gotten into the capture point along with my teammate to speed up the capturing process, he would have blocked it, which meant we wouldn't have a capture point at this point. The enemy team would have Bravo, and we would be 3 tanks in a capture point, 2 of ours, 1 of theirs, nobody's capping, which means that our tickets would begin to bleed. Now, they're going to begin to bleed regardless, because the enemy team has actually done the smart thing. They've taken a few light tanks, and they've pushed into Alpha. So now we're losing, technically, by the game standards. But for me, I have a different plan in mind, and that is to go on, I don't know how to call this. Is this flanking the flank? Probably. And this is knowledge, I believe, that is derived from playing the game over and over again and seeing different maps, how they play out, where people tend to go. If I was in the enemy team, where the Tiger 2 was that we killed, that's exactly where I would have been. If I was a person who likes flanking, where that Carnarvon just got shot, that's exactly where I would be. If I was camping, that church in the middle of the screen, that's where I would want to be. So you start to learn different patterns where people might want to camp, where people might want to flank, where people might want to go for the capture point, different routes and so on. And then you also learn things like this. There's a little smoke cloud there that just fired, and I'm going to take a blind shot because I really don't have much to lose, and I saw something moving, and luckily enough, I was able to overmatch the side of the Jagd Panther. Had that been, some other tank, maybe would have bounced. There's a bit of luck involved when it comes to blind shooting through bushes, but this is one of those problems. Just wanted to touch on very lightly today. This is not about the topic, but I saw a lot of complaints recently on Reddit about apparent hacking, especially in top tier squadron battles or these competitive tiers. And the funny thing is that in my 10,000 hours that I've played the game, I've never really experienced a hacker, or at least I've never been killed by someone and thought, oh, that dude is hacking. And there were moments where I was doubtful, but you know, the shot that I just pulled off previously with the binoculars, it proves that there are ways for blind shots to be performed. And I'm not denying that there's people out there who have used, you know, software to modify their advances. But I think at the end of the day, somebody who's genuinely good at the game shouldn't really struggle against a hacker. Unless, of course, you're playing a competitive tournament, then I do understand. That said, War Thunder's esports competitive aspect has a lot more problems than just people hacking, because I think the core of where that comes from is fundamentally broken. And speaking of core problems, yeah, spawn camping is one of them, but at this point, is this spawn pushing? Is it spawn? I'm torn. I usually am a huge proponent of the difference. So spawn pushing being the action of you being in possession of all the capture points. Basically, you winning the game and then just pushing towards the enemy. That just naturally happens. Whereas spawn camping is where you deliberately drive into the enemy spawn. Because of the layout of this map, I think both are sort of in play here. And the fundamental problem here, I think, is both the layout of the capture points, but the spawns. I think the distance between the two spawns on our team are further apart than the spawn of the enemy in my spawn. Meaning that it's easier for me to just go into one capture point and then into the enemy spawn, rather than go into the capture point and then drive laterally up to a different capture point. So it's weird, because you see here, I'm going for the cat now, and yet I'm driving there from the enemy spawn. I mean, I feel like I'm on the enemy team, but yeah, there's a risk. I can get shot from behind by somebody who spawns in, but I don't think anybody's going to actually be spawning in. I spot an IS-2 and botch up a shot there. It was just a little bit too low. Should have aimed for that turret ring, but not a big deal. I still have full crew, good old reload, but I'm screwing up one thing, and that's I'm not saving up my ammunition. I'm used to taking less ammo because I tend to play more aggressively, and then I die, and I spawn a plane, and I close air support, and I spawn SPA, and I'm going to run out of bullets this game. It happens rarely, but you know you've had a good match when you've run out of bullets. Let's talk about that thing that I mentioned before. The fact that we're playing against German tanks. It didn't really hit on me until I read chat, because there was these few guys complaining about it. It's because a few players on the enemy team had decided to match up, right? Go for a squad. And they had mixed matchmaker. They were the ones that created this. And I don't know why, but why is that even allowed? Like, why is it a thing? Why can you go into a squad with a player and force a mixed matchmaker for everybody else? It's also why top tier jet matches can be annoying, because people will derp up tier a biplane. It's not fun. I mean, it was fun back in 2014. Even I did it myself a couple of times because it was great. You can make a meme video, and some people genuinely were good at it. But these days, it's, you know, already we have unbalanced maps. We have, you know, all these bomber spams and whatnot, and not fun. And I think maps are interesting because at least when it comes to ground RB, winning or losing is not down to the map. It's always and exclusively down to the team. Yeah, you can get up-tiered. Yeah, you can get, you know, bombed. You can get... there's many things that can happen in ground RB that can, you know, cause you to lose regardless of how well you play. But in air RB, we have maps where, you know, you can fly to space in the bomber and you still win because that's how the map's laid out. Oh, a couple of tanks on the ground have captured a virtual point. It can make players quite salty. So I'm torn on this map. I'm torn on this map because I understand why it's bad. And I understand why a lot of players might not like it. But it does suit my playstyle. I can't deny it. It does suit this aggressive, spawn push campy sort of tactic. And it does also suit the fact that I can get a lot of kills in a short amount of time, and I don't have to drive over vast open fields of Volokholamsk. I don't know, I feel this map is one of those odd ones out, and it's the way that it plays that's creating more diagonal sort of engagements rather than that classic straight head-on. And here we go, we're about to get flanked by a Walker Bulldog from the forest. I spotted him in the last moment, couldn't really get the tank to angle, and he took out my gunner. First thing I do, point him out on the mini-map. Sadly, I don't have any spotting binoculars here, but he screwed up. because he took his second shot too early. What he should have done is waited for me to start turning the turret, which would indicate that my gunner has got back up. And then he would just take out the gunner again. I would have been toast. APDS that he was firing is sketchy because you either have to go for the ammo rack and hit the ammo rack dead on, or you have to go for crew members and know exactly where which crew member sits and which crew member to prioritize. And then I take another ghost shot through the bush there. This one was way easier than the previous one, into one of those whatever it's called. The Mike knows the name. Those open top things, I just know it was available through I don't know which event it was, but it was a couple of months back that this event was out. And I hate fighting that damn thing. It's not because it would be hard to engage, it's just because you can't goddamn kill it. Like, the first one that I engaged a few minutes back, we were able to kill in one shot because I was lucky to get a hit directly into the ammo rack. If you hit the top of the vehicle, it just goes straight through the thin sides, like that. See, that was, that basically went through the tank and a little bit of shrapnel killed the loader because I was aiming too high. It's a sketchy tank to kill. I don't think it has hull break. Yeah, don't like it. It's annoying. And now I'm in this position where I don't know what to do with myself. If you look at my team, everybody's sort of about behind me when it comes to the line behind the enemy. I know nobody's going to be spawning the north spawn anymore, which is also quite funny. The way these spawns work on this map, I've noticed that players tend to spawn rather evenly at the start of the match, so about 50-50. But then as the match progresses, they tend to choose one spawn over the other. Some matches they'll go for the north spawn, some matches they go for the south spawn. I guess it depends on where they tend to think most players are. It's interesting. It's one of those things that you also learn as you play the game for prolonged times. Now, my tank's still in fairly good condition, but I didn't realize at the time I only have 2 shells left. I don't know about you, but I genuinely don't look at shells. I forget that they exist. I just keep firing until they're all out, and then usually by that time I'm already dead. There was a tank here because the plane spotted him, and I know that the closest player here is the Panther, so I'm assuming whoever the target is going to be close to. Yep, there he is. Really smart decision. That was a Panzer IV, so he had a decent camouflage for this map. Not the perfect, but a decent one. And a silhouette. That tiny, slim tank is way harder to spot than my big-ass, white, all up in your face, I'm right here in the middle of an open field, shoot at me. But I like playing the game like this. I don't know, it reminds me of a stormtrooper or something from Star Wars. So I like my white camouflage. So I quickly spot Tiger Woods, and boom, he's out of the game, and so's my last shell. So off to the capture point to get a few of these shells back. This is where all of those options of anybody even trying to spawn camp are gone off the window. At this point, it's pure spawn pushing. We've won the game. We have the capture points, we have the ticket advantage, we have way superior player numbers, and there's no chance. I mean, it would have to be, half of our team would have to disconnect right now in order for the enemy team to even have the slimmest of chances of bringing this game back. So the snowball effect's in play, and as much as I love having, I think I had 12 or 13 kills at this point, I still want a couple of more. So this is where I have to think, how many shells do I want to bring back? Do I take 5, more than 5? How many players are still going to respawn? Should I just, sometimes when I'm in matches like these, I'll just park my tank somewhere and just leave, because I already know the game's going to win, so there's no point sitting there for prolonged times. There's a guy on the flank there. You can see that the south flank, or I guess the left flank for the south spawn, is so far into the map border that at some point you can't even see the tank on the minimap. So I'm bringing the shells back in, and I thought it was going to take about 4 or 5. Every shell also has to be reloaded, and I thought might as well bring myself that extra loader into the tank. I think it was a Korean there. The shell must have been a little bit short, and he gets finished off by someone else. So I thought, yeah, I think 5 shells will do. Rotate the tank, get a 6th one as we're turning. This is a little tip. When reloading in a capture point, if you move your tank backwards or forwards, then it will stop reloading. But if you just rotate it, it's fine. So it's a little trick to save some time, especially if you're reloading shells in a heavy tank, because obviously a fast tank will just yeet and it's out of there. And yeah, this is where we're going to push into the forest, try to spot a few more tanks if there is any left, and get ourselves, you know, maybe one more kill, because why not? Spot something there in the woods, can't quite see it. I have to say that the vegetation in this map is quite fantastic. I don't know what this map looks like on ULQ, or if there is much of an advantage. Obviously, people keep saying grass in optics, but I don't know, man. If you have a good, expensive computer, you might as well play the game on maximum graphics, make it look good. Which is a question I have to answer from the comment section. Somebody was asking me why my game looks so good. It's not because my game looks good, it's because I put a filter on it as I'm editing. So what the game actually looks like is this. And so what the filter does is it enhances some of the contrast, and it brings back some of that black to white ratio. Otherwise, what you get is just a giant glare on the screen, which I think is really not that pleasant to the eye. And as Gordon Ramsay would say, pretty fucking bland. And here we are, 14 kills, 97,000 silver lions, and 8,000 RP. I guess drugs are legal in Russia.